for you. He's ultra, so ultra. He's American, very American, and he plays tabletop role-playing games. TTRPG. He's the ultra American TTRPG. Yeah. So fucking ultra American. Yeah, he's American. Let's solo because YOLO, and you don't wanna be some bro ho, you know. Yeah, you fucking know. So let's go. On with the show. He's ultra, so ultra. He's American, very American, and he plays tabletop role-playing games. TTRPG. He's the ultra American TTRPG. Yeah. So fucking ultra American. Yeah, he's American.
Good evening, everyone. It is I, once again, Hunter, aka the Ultra Mega Teacher RPGer, and we are here once again on another Friday evening with another special guest, the author of one of my favorite games now that I've been running for about a year now, the Red Dice System. Now, do you prefer, should I call you Mark or Mr. Parish?
Mark, please.
Mr.
Well,
Parish
it's
was my
comfy.
father.
Yeah. No, my dad didn't go by Mr. Parish either.
All right, so how are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good. Tell my audience who you are.
Right. So, Mark Parrish, as he said, author of Red Knight System, RDS. I have been a lifelong game designer as just as a hobby. That's not that's not my day job, but I've always loved designing games. Role-playing games are kind of the newer. I played them all my life, but it's these games are the newer ones. I've also got dozens of card and board games out there as well. So just always loved designing games.
Yes. And so one
I'm a
question I
rules
always
nerd.
Yep. Oh no. The rules lawyer. Oh no. The bane of my
No, no, no,
existence.
no, no, not the rules lawyer. Can't stand those.
So one question I do like to ask everyone that usually when they have them guest on the channel. So what are your humble beginnings of like TTRPGs? What got you started and led up to where you are today?
I think my very first, well, the first game I played versus the first one I owned. The first game I played was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons back in the uh, I don't even know, 70s, 80s. I was young. The
First or second?
it was just AD&D. I don't know because
Oh.
I was it was I didn't even own it. A friend did.
Ah.
They had me rolling up a character. They had already been playing for a while, so they had me. Remember roll three dice, and that's your stats. And so while the GM was out of the room, I didn't know what was going on. They said, "Okay, just real quick, just tell him you rolled a 16 as two 17s and an 18." So okay, so I wrote down those high numbers, and then he came back in. Then I legitimately rolled another 17 and 18 once he came back into the room. So I had like all 16s through 18s for this character. And they said, "What kind of character do you want to be?" I said, I have no idea. Sure, a cleric. Okay. I could have been anything with those stats. So they made me a cleric. And apparently they were in the middle of already fighting when they had ended their last session. They were in the middle of already fighting a T-Rex. So after basically cheating my very first RPG character, the T-Rex picked me up into his mouth. I had 1 HP left. Then they killed it and it dropped me and I died. And that was my introduction to role-playing games.
That sounds like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons right there. Definitely would sounds like it
Yes.
would be the first edition. See, because if it was late 70s or early 80s, you could also have been easily maybe second edition too,
Yeah,
depending on when that came out. So
that would it would have been late 70s somewhere. I was in middle school at the time. Then the first one I actually bought was Gamma World, version one, the old initial Gamma World. Yes, and
got that.
I loved that game. So
Hold on.
that's
Nope. Sorry, I
yep.
got too many books up here to save my life. I know, like that's one of the ones I keep up here because I
Yep.
do plan to
So
run it at some point. There we are.
yep, the initial Gamma World.
And then I
Now
also got.
later versions do have better rule sets. Like a lot of the games back then, they're kind of big, they're clunky, but as my introduction to role playing games, I loved it, and that got me started on them all those years ago. So,
Yeah, the only reason I got the first one because there's a YouTuber I follow. He goes by the Dungeon Delver, and all he does is first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. He lives it, he breathes it. Anything else doesn't compare to this dude. But he's a great dude though, and he's great to chat with sometimes. And he also does a because I usually will tell people the part of the reason I end at 8 is because at 8 p.m. he does a Friday night first edition Gamma World stream. So that's why I like to try to end at
excellent.
8. You can only
Yeah.
go down. So I always tell people, hey, we're about to end. Go to Dungeon Delver's channel, watch some first edition Gamma World. And of course, there's like what 7 editions of Gamma World that exist now.
It's something
I
like
think.
that, and the more recent one I found was actually a fan made one that actually sits on top of 5e, and so you could download it for free. It uses the 5e. You didn't even have to buy the books. There is a basic version of 5e that's free that you can
Mhm,
download from Wizards of the Coast. And even as the free version, it's like 180 pages.
mhm.
But his free version of Game World sat on top of that free version of 5e. So the whole thing
Oh,
was downloadable and playable. I never got around to playing it, but I was aware that it existed. I was glad that somebody was enough of a fan of the game to go out there and do that and just make it available for people. So
yeah. So I was telling you behind the scenes before we started about the Barrows of Borderlands game that I also
yeah,
like. So a lot of the inspiration was from Gamma World because there's a little mutant race that you can play as. So you get all the mutation stuff, and then hold on, I have to actually show it in here because it's actually pretty cool. I gotta remember which section it was in. The item table charts. He's
which looks so much like the original Gamma World.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I have been so fortunate. Every time I have to roll on one of these tables, I always succeed. I have never once failed rolling on these tables by some sheer luck.
That is luck because yeah, you typically fail pretty spectacularly on those, which
Oh,
which
I've
is
heard the
sometimes part of
stories.
the fun. Yeah. Well, I remember when I was much younger in role playing games. I didn't like the failed rolls because you always want to win, you always want to succeed, and then as you get older and get into more of the stories, rather than just always succeeding, it's more about the stories you're telling. And so at some point, you reach the point in your role playing games where it doesn't really matter whether you succeed or fail, because sometimes some of the best stories come out of the failures. It's all about telling a good story.
hmm I'm trying to remember. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Whew. Sorry about that. I remember I played my first game of Empire: The Petal Throne a while back because that's one of the games that we were looking into on the Barrows of Borderlands Discord server. We just play all sorts of games, and so that was one of them. And I created this. I actually did a character creation on this video for this guy, and I rolled so poorly on this dude's stats, so bad that I ended up like, okay, there's no way this guy's going to make another session. So I ended up choosing to. I let everyone cross the fragile bridge. My character stood there because I literally had a picture where he's this big old like fat magic user basically, and his name was I think it was like picture basically kind of like the Hodor kind of guy from Game of Thrones. That's what he was,
Yes.
and we were these like one T like snake cult men were like chasing after us. The party got across. I stayed there. As soon as the snake man got on the onto the bridge, I just say I jump and I destroy the bridge underneath me and sacrifice myself with all the one T guys. So
So you can then roll up a better character. Perfect.
yeah,
I,
okay.
I I think one of my as far as characters dying, have you ever played Mork Borg?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's what got me first interested in OSR was because of how just easy and simple that system is.
It is, and for those of you who haven't played Mork Borg, your characters will die horribly and frequently, but they make it simple. There's actually a web page. You click on a link, it gives you another character. Unlike all other games I've ever played where you choose your character, I want to be this, I want to play this. In Mork Borg, you roll dice to figure out your character class, your stats, your abilities, everything. You have no choices. This is your character, and just suck it up and take it. And that's kind of the heart of Mork Borg is you make a story out of whatever you're given.
Hmm.
but you're also going to die quickly. So it doesn't matter if you don't like it because it's not going to last long. So we were in one battle where my character died, and so I just hit a button, rolled up another one, and the GM was saying, rather than coming in at the end of the battle, it's like, oh, we don't care. There's a caravan of people waiting to fight this thing. So just roll up a character, come in next round. I had a character die every round of combat for 7 rounds. It's like 7 rounds in a row. Run and die, run and
That
die, run
sounds
and
about
die.
right.
And which was hilarious. We just started laughing at it. We actually started rooting for my characters to die as soon as they came in because it was just so funny. The last character, right before we finally beat whatever it was we were fighting, because more gives you all kinds of random things. The last character to come in actually had a monkey for a pet. My character did die, but the monkey didn't. I asked the GM, "Do I have to roll up another character, or can I play the monkey?" GM says, "Play the monkey. Go for it."
You
the,
know,
the monkey actually survived the rest of the adventure.
now, are you familiar with the? There's a new version of the game out there. It's called Pirate Borg. Are you familiar with that one?
I haven't played it. I'm familiar with it. I did back
Yeah.
that
W- yeah.
Kickstarter.
One of the optional classes that you can, or class or options you can play in, is like basically like a seafaring animal, and I'm pretty sure a monkey is one of the options that you can pick for
That would
on
be
that because
hilarious.
there was monkey, there was crocodile, there was chicken, and I think there was some things that you could tweak towards, like you could be like sentient or have some weird magical ability kind of deal.
I,
So
and while I haven't played Pirate Borg, one of the things I did go through it and look in there was I was curious how they did their ship rules because the point of Mork Borg is to be very, very quick and very easy and keep
mhm.
keep things light. And ship combat can be quite complex. So I did read the ship combat section, and they did a really good job of you can have different kinds of ships with different abilities, and they still keep it quick and light. So I was impressed with their ship build and ship combat rules.
Yeah. So kind of going back to you now for a second. So you
Yes,
were talking. So
all
first,
about me
so
because I'm
yeah,
wonderful.
AD&D first edition Gamble World. What else kind of happens after that for you?
Um, for after that, I didn't do role playing games for quite a long time. I did more card and board games, things like that. I was always creating games on the side, and since I was younger, they were kind of usually two rules heavy, and they were clunky and not very good. But I was learning as a game designer. But it was more card and board games for quite a while. I got came back to role playing games in college. I created my own system. It was horrible, but I liked the world that was with the system, which was an elementally based world. And so even though that game thankfully was put out was given a quick death. I kept that world, and it went with me. Whatever game I played, that was the world I played in. And eventually when I wrote uh, ad, um, advanced tiny dungeon, you're familiar with the tiny d6 system.
Yeah,
When
that's
I
okay.
wrote,
That's the system that my friend was telling me about.
yes,
You were part of the Tiny D6
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
so I wrote advanced tiny dungeon, um, and then once I had that book out there, my I was able to finally give my world a place to live, and that's so I was able to create the elemental world out there. So those were the first books I wrote for role playing, and then but that was using somebody else's system, the Tiny D6 system, Gallant Knight Games, Alan Barr. It's a fantastic system. Uh, I will always be thankful for that system because that is what got me into minimalist role
Yeah.
playing. Before that, I was doing larger games like the Cypher system, which is a very good system, but I wanted to get away from multiple books with multiple hundreds of pages each. And so but I wasn't aware that minimalist role playing was a thing until I accidentally stumbled into uh, Tiny Dungeon. I'm on Kickstarter. I'm a super backer. I've backed like 150 projects or something. And so while I was on Kickstarter one day, one of the Kickstarter suggestions was this thing called Tiny Dungeon. Well, that sounds cute. Let's go look at that. And and it turns out to be a really good system. And that's actually what got me into minimalist role playing games.
Yeah, I'm actually having to restrict myself from doing Kickstarter for a while because Matthew Tapp, the author of Bears of Borderlands, he did a thing with the creators of the Arduin trilogy, and one of the old and one of the original Blackmore creators for a one of their systems, they're releasing this huge box set. So
Oh,
it's the Bears of Borderlands box set, which there's like which is like 5 or 6 pamphlets. There's the Arduin trilogy box set. There's the Lost Dungeons of Tonesburg adventure and system from the Blackmore gentleman, and it's gonna have like maps and dice and all that in it. But the whole box plus the special case that you can choose to order with you it was over. Because I just went all in on it because I support Matthew Tapp. He's a good friend of mine. Love his game, love his work. It was like over $200, I think, which is like the most I think I've ever spent on a Kickstarter in the entire time I've been backing Kickstarters. I think the second expensive one was when I backed the Western Reaches Kickstarter for Shadow Dark by Arcane Library, which I think was almost 100. I think because I got the main book, I just got the core rule books for that. But yeah, I'm not going to be doing any Kickstarters for a while, even though like there's so much I see that's like, oh, I want that. And then I look at the price, I'm like,
it looks really good.
dang it, yeah.
It typically when I'm on Kickstarter, I don't. I've done some TTRPG stuff there. Typically, I'm doing like campaign board games because I do board game nights with my sons every week, and we like the cooperative campaign board games, things like Zombicide and stuff like that.
I have. So I got this for Christmas one year because I came across it and I'm like, I had to have it. It is the Zombie Side Night of the Living Dead version board game.
Perfect.
And I love it. And you can play that completely solo too. It tells you how to play it all
Yeah.
solo, and it's great. And then what's interesting is the more complex board games thing for me was kind of almost a gateway for me to the teach RPGs because I remember watching Tabletop by Geek and Sundry when they start
Hmm.
playing Betrayal at House in the Hill. And
Yep.
that game, that was like one of my favorite board games. I watched all the different channels that played it. I got the original second edition and the Witch of Avalon expansion. There's now a third edition of the game now, but I'm like, I don't see the point of it. But Betrayal at House in the Hill was like almost that gateway for me to the TTRPG world, and I got a bunch of different board games after that. Like my family, we got big into the pandemic board game during the pandemic of all times, which is what I like to joke
Yes,
about.
Pandemic is good. Also, like there's a Cthulhu version of Pandemic, which is really
I have that
enjoyable.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I play. I think I played it once with an ex girlfriend of mine, and we played 2 rounds of it, and we failed both times. We tried to play it.
That one's actually a little easier to succeed in than the base Pandemic game. The base Pandemic game, it's yeah, you can go down pretty quickly on that one, but it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, I think my most rare one. It's kind of I don't want to call it rare, but it's a very niche game I have, and it's one of those deck builder games. But it's Into the Echo Side, and it was a card game released by the Insane Clown Posse, like back in the early 2010s.
I had
And
not heard of that one. Okay.
oh, it's based on like all like the underground like hip hop artists. And like I used to be big in like listening to like underground hip hop, and I considered myself kind of like a whoop whoop juggalo for a while there when I was younger, for sure. And so I got that, and then I bought the expansion they had one time from a friend because you can't buy it anywhere else anymore. And so that's like one more like niche collectibles of a deck building board game that I have. So, but the artwork's great because it's all the artists, and then just all the different things you can do with it. It's really cool.
One of the most enjoyable deck builders I've got, of course, Dominion's always good. That's the one that introduced me to deck builders. The But I backed a Kickstarter called Bone to Pick, which was a cooperative slash competitive. You're defending your town from zombies. Cooperative in that you all have to work together to defend your town. Competitive in that you're racking up victory points while you do it. Um, and but that's not a deck builder. It's a really fun
Mm,
game, but one of that company's previous games had been a deck builder. So I said, hey, while you back this, you can, as an add-on, you can buy this previous game of ours. It's called Ausonia, and it is actually one of the best deck builders I've ever played. They just do everything right in that one. It's if you like deck builders, it's a
Yeah.
fantastic one. It's not that big. A lot of deck builders can be really really big and lots of different expansions. It's just a fairly small box that's got a lot of replayability. Yeah.
Yeah, my latest one I got because I don't buy board games all the time, but the last one I got, I attended my first con for the first time ever locally here back in July, and it was a board game RPG con. So there was a huge room, bunch of board games, and then a separate room for all the RPG stuff. I ran RPGs in the morning, played board games all. Oh, something just. Huh, that's weird. For some reason, a tab opened up my screen and it completely threw me off. I'm sorry about that. So what was Oh yeah, and then board games in the evening, and there was a thing where you could play to win board games, and so you would play the board game, write down your name and who played it, and then you'd be considered a drawing. And the game I played that I won was it was a Shadowrun version of the Munchkin game.
Okay, that would be funny. Shadow Munchkin Shadowrun, I can see that.
Yeah, because you had all the cyberpunk stuff, you had all the fantasy
Yep.
races, so it had it all. And I've always heard about Shadowrun. I've never played it. I hear about the constant number of D6s you have to throw a majority of the time.
Yep.
So, but
And of
yeah,
course and of course you have no class, which is the for anyone who's ever read the Munchkin rule books. I think in one of the later Munchkin games, because there are class cards in Munchkin, but you don't start with one. And so it's one of the later Munchkin games, they say you don't start with class card because you have no class. And then in parentheses it says this joke is now legally required in all Munchkin games.
yeah, and then the reason that I'm mainly familiar with Gallant Knight games is because one of my favorite authors that has done stuff for them is James Spawn, who just this is his latest work, the
Yes.
White Box Cyclopedia. So, and
Yes, he. I was familiar with that one. I haven't read that one yet, but some of
I
his
also have
previous stuff, like he did the hero's journey, and then he did kind of a dark fantasy using the rule set for the hero's journey.
yeah,
That was
White
very
Star 2
enjoyable. Yep.
was another one of his. This is what got me really hooked onto him was getting this White Star game because I've been looking for a good. Because I'll be honest, when I was trying to find a Star Wars like game, I did not like any of the Star Wars RPGs that were out there. I tried to read through them, just couldn't click with it. I came across I came across the basic version before I got the Galaxy edition, and I read through the basic White Star book they had, and I'm like, this is what I want because there's the white box systems themselves are almost rules light for me to be because it's simple enough for me to understand and easy for me to run and play. So
And
that's
for
one
us,
reason I love white
it would
box.
seem that for Star Wars, you could probably run that in RDS pretty well. You could kind of reskin Arcanum as force powers.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably had to reskin one of the magics as force
Yep.
powers for sure. That's definitely a thing. So speaking of RDS though,
Speaking of,
what's the story behind how this came to be?
um, I had after writing Advanced Tiny Dungeon and then my world in Advanced Tiny Dungeon, the I knew I wanted to do my own game, and since I'd been designing games for a long time, I had a lot of ideas, and so my first one was actually it was a polyhedral card system, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed that system. Yes, you asked me about RDS. I'm talking about something that's not RDS. Don't worry, I'm getting there. Don't get ahead of the story. The so in the polyhedral card system, I've always really liked the idea of stats are dice sizes rather than numbers, which of course is what RDS uses. The problem with stats as dice sizes are most games use a target number. And if you're using a target number, say if your stat is a d6, if the target number is a 7 or above, you just can't get there. So the way I solved that in the polyhedral card system is you would roll a dice based on your stats. If you're kicking down the door, you would roll whatever your strength stat is, whatever dice size that was, anywhere from d4 up to d12. But you also had a hand of 5 cards. So imagine taking the poker deck, take out all of the face cards, put in the jokers. You have a 42 card deck. So you have a hand of 5 cards, and anytime you need to do something, yeah, you're trying to hit a target number, but it's you pick a card from your hand and then you roll your stat die and you add the two. And so it adds this really fun level of player agency because on every single roll you're choosing which card to play. Now it sounds like you can just always choose the highest one. Well, true, but you don't play a card then draw a card. You have a hand of 5 cards and you have to use all of them, the good ones and the crappy ones, before you get another hand of 5 cards. So then it becomes a thing of choice of when do I use my good cards and when do I use my bad ones. And I deliberately made the game player facing, which means you rolled you rolled and used your cards whether you were attacking or defending. So do I want to use my high cards for attack, which is going to leave me more open to getting hit? Do I want to save my high cards for defense, which means I'm not going to hit as well? So put it put a level of player agency in there that you just don't get in role playing games. Um, the problem we had with the game, it was phenomenal and it was a lot of fun. But as you know, when you're playing role playing games, some people don't think ahead to what's going to happen in my turn. They'll wait till their turn to even start considering. And so combat just suddenly slowed to a crawl because people would wait till it was their turn. Then they'd look at their hand of card and go, do I want to use this one? Do I want to use this one? And so or the initial playtest with me and my sons, it was very, very fast paced because we're all the kind of people. Well, it's my turn. I already got my actions planned. Here's my cards. Here's my dice rolls. Go. When we played it with other people, we would just sit there and wait for them to pick a card. And so that game ended up dying. But I used a lot of what was in there, like the magic system that's in RDS, the stats as dice sizes. I had actually written a full book for it already. And probably a good 50 to 75% of that book is in RDS. Um, for those of you who are interested in cards plus dice, I whittled it down to a 4-page micro game. And so the polyhedral card system is available for free on Drive Through RPG. So if you're curious about the system and you're the kind of people who can pick and play cards quickly, go for it. It's a really fun system. But that brings us around to RDS. So I already had the magic system. I already had the stats as dice sizes. I just needed something for basically how are these stats going to work if we didn't have cards, and that's where I came up with difficulty as dice sizes also. So it's an opposed roll system. So you have stats anywhere from D4 to D10, and then the difficulty of the task you're doing can be anywhere from D4 to a D10. So it's your roll versus the game master's roll. And the game master's die is called the red die, hence the name of the system.
Yeah, I think
And
right
so
after
so
I
it makes
bought
it
the
quick and
game,
easy.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, right after I got the game, I went to my local game store and I immediately bought a set of red dice to
I
have
remember,
for the game. So,
I remember you posting that picture on Facebook. Yes.
yeah.
So
And I think, and I was telling you earlier, so have you ever played Savage Worlds at all? The RPG?
I have not. I've heard nothing but good about it, but I don't even own it. I've never read it.
Yeah. I just actually bought the PDF of it recently because they did a Savage World September sale on drive through and I got the core rules for like $6 because it was one of the things where everyone sung praises about the game, but I could never get my hands on it and I finally did. But it works very much similar where you have your attributes and your skills are all dice sizes and then you're just rolling to try to beat a target number, usually is what it is.
That
But it's
works.
very much also setting agnostic, open world. It gives you a lot of room to like create your own characters with because you have like there are certain races you can be, but then it gives you the option to like create your own race as well if you don't like the options. And then there's like there's like boons and banes and extra abilities you can like points you can like spend points into.
Oh wow. Yes, you can get a
So
really detailed
yeah,
character built with that.
yeah. So when people were asking me because it was when I started sharing these two the expanded books around, people were asking, "What's RDS? I never heard of it before." The way I would describe it to some people is it's very much Savage Worlds light, except you're trying to beat your GM in a dice off.
Right. That
Yeah,
that I guess would be fairly accurate. The and those two new books. So RDS came out about a year and a half ago, I guess.
yeah, not that long ago.
Yep. And I knew even when I did it that I wanted to add to it. I wanted to keep the core book fairly small and light. So it's a digest sized book. So it's not your huge game books anyway. It is 200 pages, but probably almost half of that is various settings. The actual rules of the game, like the rules of how to play, are the first, I don't know, 40 pages of the book. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
pretty
I'm
easy.
going to bring up the PDF so people
Yeah,
can
yeah,
kind of
go
get a little
ahead.
glimpse at it. So when you screen share.
So, but while he's bringing that up, so
Yeah.
as I wrote the first book, I knew I wanted to add to it from people who wanted to delve more into the system. There you go. And I love that cover art by Dean Spencer, and then the interior art is all by a guy named um,
There we go.
Rick. There it is.
Yeah. As soon as I
By
showed
Rick
off
Hershey.
the.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people actually recognize the artwork right there. As soon as I showed off
Mhm.
like the front cover of that, they're like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy. He does good artwork."
It is, and a lot of it will be recognizable because all of these pictures here, both the front cover and a lot of these internal ones, they're stock art that you can get on Drive Through RPG. A lot of it is the cover definitely is stock art. A lot of the internal is stock art. Some of the internal is that I was actually Rick Hershey, who did all the internal art. I was on his Patreon for quite a while, so it is still his stock art, but not all of it was available on Drive Through RPG. It may be now. It's just you got it as it on his Patreon. You kind of got it as he created it, and I love his art style.
Yeah, I also really liked the. I thought this was a cool little table where you have the odds for your how your dice rolls, like it will be against other dice.
Yes,
So I thought that was
I'm a numbers geek, so I like seeing things like that. And you should see the Excel spreadsheet that I have that calculated because okay for those who haven't played the game. You would think it'd be nice and simple, like this dice against this dice, you have a certain percent chance of success. You think it'd be just a flat percentage, but it's not because the way the system works is sure you have a dice off against the GMs. If your number is higher, you succeed. If the GMs is higher, you fail. But if they tie, then you roll again, and that's how you get critical successes and critical failures. Or if you tie a second time, that's how you get success with a complication. And so the chances of success aren't just a simple yes or no. It's yes, no, critical success, critical failure, success with a complication. There's a number of things to throw in that number.
so. I had to go back because
Oh,
what
yes.
this so it's it because so this is not on you at all, but it's funny to bring up because one of the things I had the most difficult time trying to remember every time I was running this game for my guys was social actions and for social perceptions and which stats they were supposed to roll for it. I
Yes.
constantly forgot that.
Yes, and the way I remember, and I'll tell you, there's actually something I have a problem with in this system too that I always forget. Even as the author, I get something mixed up, but I'll come back to that in a sec. The way I remember this one is social perceptions. Think about a perception check. You're using your intelligence to look around. Whether it's a perception check, looking around a room, or a social perception check, perception is always int. Whereas social action is you're kind of using your will to, I guess, bully your way through a social situation or charm your way through a social situation. So that's helps me remember it.
I
But
thought
but you're
perception used wisdom for that, didn't it?
actually no, perception uses intelligence in this game.
I mean, in this game, but I'm thinking in most other games though, it's usually
Oh yeah,
wisdom.
probably yeah. Um, in this one, I did it to intelligence, but you're right. It probably is wisdom in other games. So in this game, what he's talking about here with the social stuff is I did not want a stat specifically for social, which a lot of games have, because that ends up a lot of times being a dump stat. So what I did was I split, you have two physical stats, strength and dexterity, and two mental stats, will and intellect. And
Mhm.
I split social actions or social perceptions into those two mental stats. So you don't have a stat specifically for social.
Yeah. And then you add your strength and your dex die numbers together for the HP, and then your will and your intellect numbers together for your spirit. But because you have, I always call spirit spell points because I think HP hit
Yes.
points, SP spell points,
And
even though it's technically spirits. So
I frequently do too. You're not the only one there. So in the combat section, I'll tell you the one thing I get wrong. So debuff
um,
actions in the combat section.
all right, hold on. I'm trying to
There you go.
combat. Oh, hold on. Where's the debuffs? Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you can do in this game is, yes, you can just roll your dice and you can hit something. But you can also, anybody can do this. You don't have to have a special skill for it. You can just say when you hit something, you can choose to do a debuff attack, which is you reduce your damage by two in order to do less damage and add a debuff, such as daze, knockdown, stagger, weaken. So it basically anybody can do debuffs. Now there is a skill that makes you better at it where you only have to reduce your damage by one. So there are people who are better at this, but anybody can do it even without that skill. So the two that I always get backwards are stagger and weaken. Even as the guy who wrote the game, I have to look those two up to see which is which.
Yeah, I have to constantly remind the guys because they are a little bit older than me. I constantly have to remind them, hey, you can also choose to do a debuff for less damage if you want to do that. Because it's just one of those things where it's like you don't always think about it when you're just constantly rolling dice and you're fighting. You're like, okay, because sometimes you can't
Well,
always. Sometimes just hitting the thing over and over again isn't always the right thing to do. Sometimes you gotta stagger it, maybe daze it.
right. It's not always the right thing to do, and also it gets boring over time. But I will tell you,
Yeah,
one of the things we like about this game is some of the freedoms it has. You can mix and match things. For example, my son played a centaur mage. He had the controller talent, so he could reduce his damage by one to add a debuff. Well, he also had Arcanum. Well, if you use Arcanum, you can do Empower Attack. You can add SP to your attack to give a debuff. So and to add damage. So he would charge into something, he would hit it, reduce damage to add dazed, then he would add SP to add another stack of dazed and get back the lost damage from controller. So he'd be doing full damage and double daze. And yes, you can stack stuff like that. So while the individual actions here are fairly easy, you can mix and match stuff like that, especially if you got magic. Especially if you can add magic to your attacks.
yeah, and then it's like I'm trying to remember what it was. I forget which part it was in, but there was something about like if you try to roll and you're spending spell points on attack and then you miss, you don't lose the spell points.
Correct. You
Which
only you only spend them on success. Yeah.
yeah, which I think I'm trying to remember. I think we said I think we our personal game we kind of did away with that because we feel like you still gotta have some give and take sometimes. Like if you put it's like I'm trying to think of how thematically if you spend a huge chunk of spell points into like a giant bolt like my centaur mage character that the guy plays as does because they picked some of the pre-gen characters and just have been playing as those guys for like the past year now. So it's like thematically, how would you failing to cast a spell result in you somehow still having that power, even though you expended all that power to a spell? Was our
I do it
thought.
thematically as in you failed to cast it. It wasn't that you cast it and it missed, you failed to cast it. So you didn't actually expend the energy. But
Uh,
but the one thing I love about this game is it's very clear, and with any TTRPG, not this one specifically, is make it your own, tweak rules, change rules.
yeah,
If your group likes the idea of spending the spell points, even if you miss, hey, go for it. Make the game your own. If that's what's fun for you, then that's the way to go.
yeah. Because another funny part that I came across was I'm trying to remember where I saw this was because again we're playing online and we were because okay so when we were starting this at the time it's like okay well it says everyone has a shared karma pool and shared momentum pool. I decided that nah, everyone has their own karma momentum pools, everyone just has to
Mhm.
keep track of everything, and I did not realize it until like literally like a couple weeks ago you had rules for personal karma momentum
Yes.
pools in your book that I did not even know because I was just flipping through trying to find something else and then I saw something I'm like that's been in there the whole time.
You probably didn't see it because it was in the optional rules chapter, but
That's
because I
where I was trying
also
to remember
play
where it was.
online,
Yeah.
yes, if everybody's together at a table, or even if you're on a virtual table, you can have ways to track it as a group. But when you're all playing separately online, just like say over a Discord voice call, trying to track it as a group is honestly a pain in the butt. So yeah,
Yeah.
in that case, it is better to keep it separate.
Yeah. And then the last time we played our RDS game, I had to remind because we always forget all the things you do with karma. I had to we all just suddenly remembered. Oh yeah, we can also spend karma to increase our success ratings if we need to. So we could spend the karma, go from a failure to a difficult success, or a difficult success to its normal success.
Yes. Yeah, that's where we enjoyed the karma system was kind of funny how it came out. I had already completely written RDS. The game was like not in book form, but as far as functionally, and I write it in a Word doc first. The game was already written, and then I thought about this karma system, um, and I thought, you know what, I'll write it up real quick, just write a quick page on it. We'll test it next time we play. I didn't even know if it was going to work. Sometimes as a game designer, you just try stuff. Sometimes you think something's going to work, you play test and you go, wow, that was really crappy. And then sometimes you just try it just to see if it'll work. And the karma system ended up being so much fun because it allowed people to muck with the game. And also allows the GM to muck with the game because the players and GM are both earning these karma points that allow them to force your opponent to re-roll their die or to change the value of change a success to a failure or failure to success. So it allows people, it gives people some agency that's over just pure dice rolling.
Yeah. And I was actually very happy to come across this because several times the question came up was, can one player use their karma to help out another character? And because we didn't see that at the time, we thought, oh no, there's no rules for it. Not realizing you had rules that say you could spend momentum to give karma to someone, or to basically spend that karma to help out another character. So
Yes.
we all were looking at that like, holy crap, that was in there the whole time. We didn't even realize it. We played this game for a year now.
He even thought about that. Oh, if you
Like,
scroll down to a few pages to the end of the optional rules section, you'll see a gambling game.
oh no, I remember when I came across that one. We actually had like a half a session where we were. Hold on, let me find it really quick before I go
Well,
into the conversation.
yeah,
There it
it's the
is.
very last thing in ops. So that was one of those. My son was actually GMing. I talk about playing with my kids, and when people hear that, they think about playing with little kids. I'm old. My kids are all in their 20s, so they've. My son was GMing one time, and he just kind of made this up on the spot. Now we didn't have that convenient table there. It was more. He had written some notes out for himself of, since we have these pool of dice, we have a D 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. He says,
Mhm.
roll your 5 dice and then come up with a gambling hand based on those dice.
Yeah, it's
And
basically
it worked
dice
out
5 card
great.
draw.
It really is. And so we had to make up some things that can't happen in cards, and so so it's not exactly playing cards. It is its own thing, but it has a lot of the same stuff. And so that actually, it was just something somebody made up in a session that ended up making it into the game.
Yeah. So one of the sessions that we did, because we've just been running a pure fantasy campaign currently with RDS, and what happened was, so I was kind of giving them a break, so they were resting at this tavern, and there's this basically it's like it's basically it's a reptilian kobold character dressed up like one of those like card shark guys, and they basically they basically gambled with the kobold, and the giant blood won. Which basically
Nice.
I just ruled as you get a bump in your well stat if you want to buy something later. So
That's awesome.
yeah, because in this game, yeah, we also remind ourselves is wealth is rolling as well. It's you don't, unless you choose to keep track of like coins and all that.
You're right. Yeah. If somebody wants to track gold, they can. Otherwise, it's just assumed you have enough money to stay at an inn or get a drink. It's uh it's an abstracted monetary system.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to find. Yeah, because it's funny because I know you always talked about you could play this solo, but I never saw your Oracle your solo GMless roleplay section until like a couple weeks ago as well. So
Yes, and I use that even if I'm not playing solo. When I play a Tuesday night game with a couple of guys where we'll take turns GMing, we'll play different games, and we'll use oracles like this, like the yes no oracle. We'll do that frequently. Sometimes as GM, of course, somebody asks a question, you make it up. Sometimes it's like, I don't really care if the answer is yes or no. Let's roll for it and see what happens.
mhm.
Let the story go where it will.
Yeah, I've done that for when I was using that table for like, okay, is this actually a thing here? okay, nope, is this in here? Yes, it is apparently. So
Yeah. And so when you're using that yes, no, you use that likely or unlikely to modify
mhm.
your D12. And then I like the fact that you've got the and yes and no and ands and buts. So you can get, there's a lot of flavor in there. It's not just a yes, no, which I enjoy.
Yeah, so why, I guess, curious because most of the oracles that I've seen used for solo, they use the D6 for it, and then for the yes, for the likely or unlikely, you add a D6, take the lowest or take the highest. Why a D12 and the adding for this one was
Gotcha. The reason for the D12 is quite simply D12 is my favorite size of dice. So
oh
I just
so
like it. It makes me happy.
so
Um,
what I need to do is I need to introduce you. You should head up this guy sometime. This is another fantasy game called Horde Wars, and it's a D12 system, completely
There you
D12.
go. Love it.
So
Part of it was because I like a D12, and part of it was because I wanted the ands and buts in there. But if you're just doing a D6, the ands and buts are too frequent. Doing a D12 allowed the ands and buts to remain at only one third of the time. Because if you notice your straight no's and straight yeses, it's weighted
mhm,
towards those. Where if you're doing a straight D6, that table would be even, and I didn't want it to be even. So that was the other reason for the D12.
okay.
As far as why the pluses and minuses, so if you pointed out on the other page over there, so something is likely or unlikely or very, as far as the reason for the pluses and the reason for that is sometimes when you ask a yes no question, it's not even odds. So if it is even odds, you just roll the d12. But if something is likely or unlikely, or then it allows you to easily tweak the roll, but still stay on the same table. You don't have to create something brand new. It's just an easy modification.
Mhm. And then, yeah, so I mean, this is just one thing that because solo play has become very popular now in the recent year, and so this is one thing I'm glad that so a lot of games now have been doing stuff like this.
Yep. And you have noticed, like you say, other games, like you mentioned, other games will use will for this, or other games use. I haven't. I didn't design this based on what a lot of other games do. It was
Mhm,
more like, if I'm designing a game, what sounds good to me? So
mhm,
I wasn't trying to match what other games do. And so in some cases, it wasn't trying to match what other games do. In some cases, just, oh, I wasn't aware that other games did it that way. Interesting.
mhm.
So
So I was trying to find. I wanted to show off that because I know in here you have a chart. There it is, the karma system. That chart right here, where you got the crit fail to
yes.
fail, difficult success, success, crit success. So and that was
Yeah.
and also this is another thing we keep forgetting too is that you can spend a karma to recover hit points or spell points. We always forget that one too.
And we usually have a healer in the party, so we've rarely ever used that one. But yeah, it is there.
Yeah, I seem to suffer from any group I play in or that I run for never seems to have the healer when they need one,
But yep, everybody wants to be a fighter or a mage. Nobody wants to be the cleric.
or they just don't roll the stats to have the cleric for most games
Uh,
usually.
right. And in this game, luckily, that's not a problem because anybody can
Yeah,
be anything. Since this is a
yeah,
classless system, it's you pick the abilities you want. So
yeah,
speaking of that, so in this game, you start off with a D4, two D6s, and a D8, and you have four stats.
yeah,
You put those in whatever you want. Then you pick three. You pick a race, and you pick three abilities, and your character's ready to go.
yeah. And then
Well, one of the things I do like
what
about
gets
the
this?
magic in this is you have Bulwark, which is like cleric magic, and Arcanum, which is like wizard magic, but it doesn't tell
Hmm.
you that you're a fire mage, you're a lightning mage. Whatever magic you choose, whether it's Bulwark or Arcanum, you choose a magic style. So you could be a fire mage or a lightning mage or a cold or poison mage. It's your magic style is the flavor of your magic. It tells what kind of damage it does in case that matters. It's a minimalist system, so it frequently doesn't, but it's more you're allowed to flavor your magic the way you want. The spells themselves are generic. It's not like a lot of games where you have a very distinct spell list of casting a fireball, casting a lightning bolt. This one just says you have an attack spell. So what that attack spell is going to look like is based on the magic style you've chosen.
Hmm. Yeah, and then oh, one
So
thing
you
that
could
I
be a
did.
happy rainbow necromancer.
Yep, did I? Yeah. One thing I also did for my centaur player character that is playing in the game I'm running is I only did the one time, and I'm surprised I haven't done it again sooner. But I ruled like a because right out the gate when we started play when I started to help you with playtesting stuff from your expanded books, I was trying
Thank you for
I
that, by the way.
oh, no problem. I was glad. I just wish I got to do more of it, but I still got at least I'm glad I got to play test still some parts of it here and there. The very first thing I did was I play tested. I created this old like frail necromancer wizard that just summoned these skeletons out of the blue, and they had to fight them off. Well, when I kind of gave them all like a little bit of something from them that they found, and the centaur I say found a scroll of darkness. And I'm like, well, most wizards usually are able to read scrolls to learn spells. So I ruled it as he had to do like 3 checks. And if he was able to pass 3 checks, he could learn the spell and he would be able to have that in his arsenal, basically. If he failed, the scroll would just burn up. If it crit failed, that would have really sucked for him, basically.
So you're
So
using kind of a 3 before 3 roll. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
I
I
like
just
that.
thought it was a neat thing. So yeah. And then
I do like that. So it could actually increase his capabilities. Yeah.
yeah, and then I also forget because there's the spell that you can switch between the Arcanum and the Bulwark. It's like I constantly remind him of that. Like, okay, it's like I can't heal. It's like you can switch your spell lesson for a second there to do that if you need
Oh
to.
yeah, and you don't actually have to swap anything. It's just they're just 2 different talents, and you can learn both of them. So you could be a wizard and a cleric. This game doesn't restrict you from to just one thing. If
Hmm.
you take both talents, then you have access to all that
Yeah,
magic. Of course, it's still the same pool of spirit points. So yeah, you have access to more kinds of spells, but you're still limited in how much spirit you can use per day. And
yeah,
then
and
once, oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead and finish your thought first, and then
Oh,
I'll share
I
what I
was
was
going to
going to
say,
say.
and then when you get into the expanded magics book, so as I said, when I was writing this, I knew there was more I wanted to do. So in the base book, it's just cleric and wizard magic, but in the expanded magic book, you get bard, druid, necromancer, and infernal magic, which is like abyssal and chaotic and fire and evil stuff.
Yeah. So it's funny because we bring up spell points because this brought up to something that I did recently for one of my players was because we were looking over the magic items, and I think and he wanted to type this part out in when I was showing my arm. I'm like, no, please don't do that. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But one of the things he talked about, well, if you do have this section for magic items, because again, this guy that I play, one of the players, he's also a game designer. He's made his own games, and the core rulebook itself doesn't necessarily give you like rules per se on like how to create your own magic items. To where
Correct.
I just basically kind of said you're supposed to just kind of just roll with it and just kind of come up with stuff on the fly. So basically what I my thought process is you take a spell, you can view it in an item, magic item, which led to
Yeah,
which
pretty
led to the
much.
creation of the armbands of empowerment. So how this item came about was in this village that my players were staying in, there was a chapel ran by some lovely sisters. Come to find out, the chapel was a part-time brothel and part-time pit fighting ring at the same time. And this is not something I made up. This was using a buddy of mine's like setting book for this village. So this was actually something in this book. And but what in the pit fighting ring, I decided the giant blood was like, oh, I want to get on this. And so he couldn't have his weapons, he couldn't have his armor. It was just fist and fist. But what the guy didn't know at the time was the person that he fought was basically, if you've seen the picture of the 20s, like shirtless boxer with the mustache, he's got his fist like, put him up,
Yes.
put him up, put him up. It was basically that guy, and he was called the Crusher, and he had these armbands on him, which the Centaur Wizard, as he was watching, noticed that these runes would glow on it, and it would imbue like his fist with some power to do the empower attack spell to deal more damage on the giant
And
blood guy.
so basically, it was using the empower attack ability that's listed in the book, but putting it into an armband.
Yeah, and I thought
Yep.
this was to me, I thought this is a great way for the fighter type person who's had spell points just sitting there the entire time, being completely useless, this would be a good way for him to use those finally.
Absolutely. And that's why I actually, that's actually a good use of that. I also mentioned in the optional rules that you could do that empower attack as a talent. So even if somebody doesn't want to be a mage, they could take that and use those spell points. Um, that way so when you're using the empower attack spell that Hunter's talking about, you can either use it for a magic attack or you could use it to empower your physical attacks.
Yeah. This the giant blood has also had a known for collecting very much special axes. As the last one he got was when they saved a dryad from a fantasy lumberjack, as I referred to him as. So it was basically a guy wearing like hide armor, but it was his shirt he was wearing was the plaid lumberjack like checkered outfit, and he got
Perfect.
his and he stole the lumberjack's potent felling axe. So it was basically an axe that gave him a +1 to his attack rolls.
Wow. All
Yep.
right. So, and it's worth mentioning that on the plus one, the uh, the game doesn't actually use plus ones or minus ones. Now, it does say in the beginning when it's talking about this,
This one I think is from the potent part. I think was
yes,
from your
it
expanded was where I got
It,
that
it is
from.
where it actually did do that,
Mhm,
um, but in the original book, it doesn't use the pluses, and it's
mhm.
not that it's against it. It flat out tells GMs they can if they want. What it uses is a series of bumps instead. What that means is, say your strength is a D8, so you're rolling an eight-sided dice. Rather than getting a plus to your dice rolls, you could get your dice bumped up. So instead of rolling a D8, you'd be rolling a D10. If something negative happens, like you're dazed, your D8 would go down to a D6. So your dice sizes can get bumped up and down, and that's how the game handles pluses and minuses. So you're not really having to do math on your rolls. You're changing the size of the dice before it's rolled, and it's that turned out to be a really effective system.
Yeah, I also really one of my things I like is instead of having your dice rolls for how much damage your weapon does, you have your peril system, which is basically it's normally deals a flat 3 damage every time it hits, and you can increase it or lower it depending on how deadly or casual you want your game to be.
Yeah, we tend to play at a parallel of four. Actually, do you tend to play with three?
We're just pretty casual with it because even with a
Yep.
parallel 3, my guys have been so close to like not making it half the time with some of these
Right.
encounters.
Well, and that's probably because if you're not playing with a cleric, that's probably true. We tend to play with a cleric, so we
Yeah.
we play with a four and have not been close to dying a lot.
Well,
So
I have
so
I have
so a lot of it
decided
really depends on your party.
yeah, well, I have since then. They now travel with an NPC character at some point, either another person that can also fight, or someone who does have some sort of buff or clerical abilities to
Yes.
heal. So that traveling NPC that goes with them, because one I was going to bring up your enemies a little bit because what I really like. So this is one thing I liked, but this is one thing that Shadow Dark absolutely ruined for me was having digest-sized books instead of large tomes like D&D does still, and but also the size of enemy stat blocks. Because if you look at an enemy stat block in Shadow Dark, it's only like maybe that big, and I would say this it's the same for RDS. You don't have a whole lot for your enemy stats except for like what they do, what you roll,
Right.
and all that. So.
Because rather than a stat block, they just have a difficulty. So this is
Mhm.
the dice size they use. Whereas the characters will have all four stats: strength, dexterity, will, intelligence. Any of your NPC you face just has a single difficulty die, anywhere from a D4 to a D12. Now it is worth noting that enemies can get up to a D12 or even a D14. We'll get back to that because yes, I'm aware it's
Yep,
not a dice
like
size.
your link
We'll
right
come back
there.
to that. The
DCC would like to have a talk to you about that.
yes, the but so while they have a single number, but it can go higher than yours, whereas the player characters, your stats max out at a D10. You can increase your stats over time, but they still cap at a D10. And the reason for that is that you can get skills, and if you're skilled at something, like say you are skilled at attacking, your dice gets a bump up. So the way you get to a D12 for the character is just to have your dice at a D10 and then have a skill that takes you up to D12. Now, the reason monsters can have a D14 and in the expanded Beast book, they can even get up to a D16. Um,
Or
the way
if
those
you look at your gigantic characters that always roll a d20 regardless of
D20,
their difficulty.
right, but they're actually rolling a D20. The difference there is with a D14 and a D16, since those are not real dice sizes, if something has a D14 or a D16, they're still rolling a D12. But the reason for those unusual numbers is because of the bump system. So if something gets a bump down, think about it, a D12 bumps down to a D10, bumps down to a D8. So things shift by two. So if something is a D14, like that lich you're showing on the screen, if
Mhm.
it gets a bump down, it's still going to be rolling a D12. You'd have to bump it down twice to get it to a D10. So
Yeah. And then, like, I think it's interesting because when I look at a lot of these stat blocks, I love like the stuff you provide for them. But when I think back at all the monsters ever now, I don't think I've ever used a stat block just purely as it is in the book. I think I've always tweaked it a little bit. Like, where did
oh,
I see?
absolutely, but if you know at the beginning of the enemies chapter, it actually tells you
Yeah,
how to tweak them. So
yeah, like
because we don't expect people to use them as they are. I say we. I'm a one person.
yeah. I'm trying to find where that mercenary stat block is because that's one. Yeah,
It's under mercenary. Yeah.
yeah, like what? Because like I've done mages, but I've always usually will either decrease the hit points, only let them have all the spell points, or I'll decrease both the depending on what level of mage should this be? Would this be like a first level mage?
Yes,
Like when I did the frail necromancer, he had the 22 spell points. He only had like 12 hit points.
that would be perfect. I like some of the behind the scene stuff. Like scroll down just a little bit there. There's that pinkish red box below the troll where it's
Oh yeah,
actually yeah, so there's stuff like this in there where it says that trolls are thought of. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the basic idea is there. It says that trolls are thought of as evil and stupid, but neither of those things are true. People think they're stupid because they speak their own language and not many of them speak the common tongue. So that's actually a language barrier. And people think that they're evil because they'll attack people wandering by. But the way trolls see the world is they live outdoors and they see the area where they live as their home. So in their view, you're invading their home. So they're not stupid or evil. They're just culturally different.
yeah. And so I kind of did something like this where I have two NPCs currently that kind of travel with the party here and there. The first one is the niece of the village mayor, and I basically treat her as like a bard, so she has a lot of those troubadour spells from your expanded magic
Yes.
book. And then the other one is just another fighter, and he's a Lupin named Lupin. So,
I
and he
always
talks to the
enjoyed the
third person
Lupin.
like Lupin smell blood, Lupin
Mm,
smell that way. He always talks to the third person, and of course, everyone thinks he's a werewolf, but he's not really a werewolf. Lupins are just humanoid wolves, is what they
yes.
basically are. But, but of course, but it's like he always stays, he secludes himself from like the village because it's like everyone sees him and they're like werewolf, Lupin, not werewolf.
Not squirrel. I cannot change.
Yeah, but he's like this. He's like this leather armor wearing, dual axe wielding Lupin
Oh,
character
so
that will
you're
walk
using are
around
you
with
using
him.
the
So
dual wield rules from the optional rules?
I did not even realize there. Like once
Yes.
again, I didn't realize there was rules for dual wielding.
Yes. Yes, sir. So you made up your own. Excellent. So what are your dual wield rules? I'm curious to hear them.
Well, I don't even. I'm not even. I don't even call it as dual wielding. It's just he's just attacking with both
Gotcha.
axes at
Okay.
once. I just roll one attack usually. I didn't. Let me look this up now.
No, okay. The way you're doing it is perfect because if he didn't take a skill for it, then that's just how he attacks. But if you go to the optional rules, so it would actually take one of his skill choices, and it would give him a little bit of an ability.
Where is that under on here?
It's in the optional rules wherever. Oh,
More crits on
there
hit
is more
dice.
races. Hold on.
Tide of the battle. More races. Oh, okay. There's the empower attack one that I just somehow have to glance over every time. Somehow, heritage
There's more
is
talents somewhere
limited
in
stat
there.
increase. Yeah,
There you go.
talents right
Talents.
here.
Here you go. Dual
Okay,
wield is in there.
again, how did I just glance right over this?
Apparently, the
That's
the the
crazy.
optional the optional rules chapter has a lot of magic for you.
Apparently so.
There is
Oh, good.
some modified bare hand mastery. So what's fun about the talents here? The bare hand mastery would actually replace the bare hand mastery from the main one. The rest of these are actually new talents that help you further specialize your weapons. So there's something for range weapons, something for magic, something for heavy. It can whatever type of weapon you like to use, this can empower it. So the dual weapon. So if you want to use a light or medium weapon with a shield, you have shield bash. If you want to use two light or medium weapons, you have dual wield.
That's actually really cool because in the same D12 Horde Wars game, the shields are not only provide defense, but they're also statted out to where if you want to attack with them, you can literally just go. You can literally go slice bat with
Yep.
your shield if you also have the feature for dual attack as well.
Yeah, and here it would be a separate talent that you would have to purchase.
Mhm.
So it would take one of your level up purchases. So one of the things I have enjoyed in this game is when it came to like how to do weapons, how to do shields, or how to do a number of things, we I if you could always use shields and shields always give you a bump up, that was actually too powerful. So how do you give something a helpful effect without it being overpowered? And that's why a lot of things in this game have once per combat abilities. Like
Mhm.
light weapons and medium weapons and shields, they each have special abilities. And the way you keep from being overpowered is you can only use them once per combat. So they're helpful but not stunningly powerful. Like a shield can block all damage from a single attack. They can only do it once per combat. The rest of the time, it doesn't do anything. Now, is that realistic? No, not really. But the point is, it's a minimalist game, so you want your rules to be simple and quick, and hopefully effective. And so minimalism is the goal over like trying to keep everything realistic.
Yep. And I just wanted to share off some of these sample settings too, really
Oh,
quick,
sure.
because I really did like, especially for a system agnostic game that this is. I do like that your sample settings prove that you can do just about anything with this game. I think one of my favorite ones is the where did I see it? Uh, yeah, the servant secret setting is definitely one that definitely
To
catches my
yes,
interest.
to serve in secret is a modern day spy, no magic. So this game we've talked a lot about the magic and stuff, and so yeah, we do like our fantasy RPGs. So the game does give all the magic rules, but there's also a setting and also a section in the GM rules that talks about what if you want to play in a world that doesn't have
Oh,
magic. There's rules for that, so you can play a
yeah.
magic free world
Mm.
here.
Oh, and the other one that I really like is Boundary Wardens, where it's modern day, but you're keeping magic a secret from the public.
Yeah, and to me, Boundary Wardens in my mind is kind of a mix of Men in Black and Harry Dresden.
Yeah, because see, this is what when I think about all the games I play and like stuff I consume, it's either the modern day Earth mixed with some sort of like maybe science fiction or fantasy, like I think the Bright movie with Will Smith. That's what I think of when I
Yes.
think modern day fantasy. And but then there's also science fantasy where it's very much that medieval fantastical realm, but then you got like guns and radiation and mutation also still happening at the same time.
Yeah, and I
And
did want to be so this setting I try to make a good mix of fantasy, real world, science fiction, medieval, modern day, futuristic. There's some 1800s stuff in there. So I wanted to get a good mix of eras and and eras and themes.
yeah, and then you have you say like, hey, if you're doing the setting, this would be the races that would be kind of in this. So, like you do have rules in your optional for if you're doing an all human game. It's just basically you're
Mhm.
taking the races and you're setting them for like a human character, and then you also have like different abilities, the equipment you have, and all that thing, everything that changes. And then I also like how instead of like trying to define all the weapons for what they do, you just have your weapon categories, and then you so you can do like a light melee weapon, and you can just say like this is like my light my brain is not braining right now for some reason. You
I
can like
cannot bring today.
this is what my light melee weapon is. Like it leaves it up to interpretation for what the characters would like to have.
Correct. Yeah. So all light weapons are going to behave the same because it's a flat damage system. You don't have to worry about different things behaving different ways. It just keeps it nice and simple. And then in the combat section, and then again in the appendix of the book, it talks about the differences between light, medium, heavy, ranged. So each class of weapon is a little bit different. So that's just to give some flavor to the game.
Yep. And then, like again, even though this is all stock art you've bought from Drive Through, it's still like really good. Just the quality of it.
Yeah, the Rick Hershey stuff is so good.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
and you can see if you've kept up with his, if you've looked at his stuff for years, it's been enjoyable to see the quality of his stuff increasing over years as he's been becoming a better artist.
Yeah. I mean, this has also been one of my favorite games just to run. It's like
Well, thank you.
I do plan on doing more stuff with it at some point, just using it for other settings, tying maybe just using it to like just take stuff from another game and just put it in here to see how it would work. Like what I'm trying to do with the Barrels of Borderlands right now. Like what I literally just I went through all the races that are on the hold on, let me get this off really quick for a minute. If I can figure out how to do that. There we go. Uh, okay, let's take its time. Like I just literally I went all your races that were in RDS, and I just figured out which one would match perfectly with the races that are in here. So I literally have a note file right now that's okay. Here's all the races. This is
Perfect.
what their dice stats would be, changing some of their abilities and all that because basically they have kobolds and but cool like dog like kobolds. But basically, it's like, oh, kobold has teeth, claws. Well, I can usually take the stats from the goblin and put that for a kobold because the
That'll
goblins
work.
have their bad attacks. Give it to the kobold instead. So, and then they have a race in Bears Borderlands called the Green Skull, which is basically like if you took your mutants from Fallout, but you made them more like translucent and skull, and they basically are immune to radiation. So what I did was I took, but they're also like big, kind of beefy guys sometimes. So I took the
So you did a
Giant Blood
giant
stat
blood.
race. Yeah, with the exception of I added in that they're immune to radiation because in Bears of Borderlands, green skulls are immune to radiation because that's how they were basically created.
Well, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I will tell
Yep.
you a character you might have fun with at some point. So, if you're looking at RDS and you want to do a tank, naturally you're just going to go with Giant Blood. They're made for it. They wear armor automatically. They don't have to buy it. They have extra HP, so they're just a natural tank. One of the things that's not as obvious but really fun, using a halfling as a tank, which sounds weird because they're right, because they're small and they have -2 HP instead of +2, but they can dodge once per combat, which is the same ability as a shield. Once per
Yeah.
combat, you can. So if you give a halfling a shield, those abilities stack. So this little bitty guy can completely ignore two hits, no matter how big they are, twice. So twice per combat. So halflings can actually be really stunningly tanky, which you don't expect from a halfling, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm trying to look something up here really quick because there's a question I want
Okay.
to ask you now that I had it here that I just thought about it. I'm just trying to remember how that.
I mean, well,
Yeah, there we go.
okay,
So I remember what it is now. I just remember. So I mentioned earlier that this has the actual a mutant race option that you can play
right.
as it bears born as well. There's also the gamma class as well, which is basically just you're mutated even more. And so he has all these. This basically it's a D100 table of like mutations that you can roll. I guess because one of the issues I'm trying to think about is how would you do these if you were to take like basically if you want to do stuff from like Gamma World and RDS with all the mutations that it has, how would you work that into an RDS game where it's like whereas like getting mutations in this in a white box setting, it's got numbers that go with it, whereas RDS, the numbers don't really matter so much.
Right. What I would do is you could have functional mutations versus that. Not everything that happens in a
Let's
game,
see
you
here.
have to remember that role-playing games are about the story. So not everything is about
Hmm.
modifying your stats. Like you could have wings or a tail. They're not going to modify your stats, but they can definitely change what you might be able to do. So think of mutations in in those terms. Also, some mutations might modify stats. Like if you get a third eye, that might give you the perception skill. So what I've done in say in Bavar, when I have one of the ages here is a post-apocalyptic and there's radiation. So what I did there was when you level up and you get a new ability, you can say that you got that ability because you trained for it, you learned it, whatever, or you can say that you got that ability because it's a new mutation. So
Mhm.
if you are, and you can do the same thing in a futuristic age, like with cybernetics. Are you perceptive because you got the perceptive skill, or are you perceptive because you got a cybernetic eye, or um, are you armored because you took the armor mastery skill, or are you armored because you got hit with radiation and now you have bone plates on your skin? So you can use mutations in a post-apocalyptic
Excuse
setting,
me.
or cybernetics in a futuristic setting, or a mix of both. Um, and you can take the same abilities that are in the game and just flavor them and say that you have them because of mutations or cybernetics. So they kind of fit into
So
the game naturally.
so you would almost kind of tie them to like maybe some of their skills and talents then per se,
I would
or would you have it be a whole separate thing?
well what I did what I did at least in Bavar, because remember Bavar uses the tiny d6 system, which as you know is very minimalist. So you have the same kind of thing of it's minimalist. There's not a lot to mess with. So what I did in that one was whenever you leveled up and gained a new trait, you would roll a dice to see, is it a normal trait or do you have this trait because it's a mutation? So rather than rolling on a mutation table, the abilities that you're getting anyway might end up being because of mutations. So it kind of works the other direction.
Yep. And I just wanted to, I went
No.
ahead and I shared this in the chat for those that
Oh,
are
thank you.
listening.
Yes.
There is a bundle on Drive Through RPG that you can, I
The
think, is it
bundle is
just for the, yeah, it's just for the
yeah,
PDFs, but you can individual items and do POD for these books as well.
correct. Correct. So
Yep.
drive through doesn't bundle the physical books. So but that is a
I
really good
actually have
price.
seen them do bundles with physical books though lately. I've seen a few that do that now, so
I may have to
that could
figure out
be
how to
a
do
new
that
thing
then.
they're doing
Okay.
on some games. So yeah,
Nice.
that would be kind of cool if you could like get, yeah, for like one price you can get all three of these books like
Yeah,
together. So
that would be. Typically the price on the books though is like on the PDF I can kind of set that price wherever I want, and then drive through RPG takes the percentage. When it comes to a books, there's a physical cost of printing the books, and then I have a little bit of profit on top of that. So when you're paying for a physical book, most of that money is actually going to the printer. Um, I actually only make a couple of bucks on a physical book, even though the price is higher. You'd think I'm making more. I'm not, because I want the price to be kind of as low as I can for the customer. So I'm only
mhm.
making a little bit of money there. That's mostly you're paying the printer. So
Yeah,
sadly, I can't really lower those prices more. So next for RDS, because I
mhm.
want to be able to get to your Game World thing, there is another
Uh,
book in works.
I was trying to remember. I had a thing I was talking about because one of my things I've kind of been talking about here and there is like just how expensive some games have gotten now, to the point where it's like it's not
Yes.
feasible to always purchase a physical copy. So I was trying to
Yeah.
remember.
If you look, I actually
I was
saw
trying to
something
remember
on
the.
that.
It was like I was trying to remember the acronym I came up with. It was like a, oh, MTAG, make tabletop affordable again.
But if you actually look at, see, I'm a little bit different because I'm not a company. You will not find these in stores because I don't have them printed. I just do this as a hobby. So I
Yeah.
can make them affordable because I only care about breaking even. For companies that actually have to make money, um, you pay per word to have something written, you pay per word for editing, you pay per page for layout, you pay for all the artwork. There's if you do a Kickstarter, their Kickstarter takes a certain percentage off the top. If then you sell it and drive the RPG, they take a percentage off the top. I actually saw a really good detailed layout recently, where you see these tabletop games that are 60, 80, 90 bucks. If you look at the word count in them, the companies actually aren't making that much. Those prices that seem exorbitant, if they're paying people to write them, it's actually not a lot of profit.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
kind of stunning.
All right. So, what is next on the table for Red Die System?
Um, I started. I knew that I wanted to write a new world. Now you've seen. We already showed you. There's a lot of settings in here, but I actually wanted to write a fully more detailed world. The favorite book that I've ever written or really enjoyed writing when I wrote that world for Advanced Tiny Dungeon a couple of years back. Um, the back section of the book, I did something that I've always wanted to do, which is to age a fantasy world. So a fantasy world doesn't have to be, when you look at a setting, typically they're medieval or they're modern day or they're futuristic, but a world is a living thing that ages over time. So the base setting is medieval, but then you have at the back of the book, there's ages. What if we take this same setting and move it into like the 1800s or Wild West or modern day or futuristic or post-apocalyptic? So there's chapters at the end of the book that age the world. And so I wanted to do the same thing for RDS. So yes, it would be a fantasy world, but you could play it at multiple ages over this world's history. And I love the idea of that because that gives you uh, it gives you basically multiple settings in one. But so I knew what I want to do, but I didn't have an idea for the world itself. Meanwhile, one of the guys I play with who writes micro RPGs, he had this idea for floating islands and a gas giant. And
Mm,
after writing like 15 pages of bullet pointed notes, his games are usually only like 4 or 5 pages. So once he had 15 pages just of notes, he realized this was way outside the scope of anything he'd ever write. So he shelved it and wasn't going to write it. Then along I came saying, hey, I want to do a world, but I don't know what. So he actually let me have his world. So it will be um, Sky Islands of Etheria. So it's floating islands in a gas giant. And the first part of the book will be about the world in its medieval age. And then the second part of the book will be taking that and rolling it up through Victorian age, modern, futuristic, post-apocalyptic. So it'll be have a number of ages in there that lets you basically play the world at a lot of different times.
so, I think this would be a great idea to wrap it up now. Usually, this is where I ask where everyone could find you at, but unfortunately, you are a hermit that does not is not that active on social media. But you do have a Facebook group, though.
I do.
Yeah, so if you all just go look up Red Die System Facebook group, I'm a part of that. It's where we share Red Die stuff. If you do it, I posted one of the armbands of empowerment on there. So if you want to use that, go ahead. It's just a thing I made for fun. If you want to give your fighters some extra oomph and reason to use those spell points, go ahead. And so it's just where we all talk and we basically just share about the games we've been doing with the system. So it's not a big group, but it's good. It's great.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for being a pre-reader and playtester for the Expanded Magics and Expanded Beasts. I thoroughly enjoyed writing those books.
Yes, and I'm very much glad to be owned to this. And I'm looking forward to next year. I plan on doing my zombie apocalypse with the RDS system that I was telling you about
Perfect.
behind the scenes. So that is going to be something I'm going to start doing next year, live streaming. If I get around to finishing all my other stuff, it's crazy right now. So I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you, Mr. Parish, again for coming. Mr. Parish, now I'm doing it. Mark, thank you, Mark, for coming on.
It's because
Hopefully,
I'm
I'll
old.
it's like when there's more RDS stuff comes out, we'll have to get you back on again in the future, and so y'all share about
Absolutely.
that as well. And so this is also the time I'm right now. We're here in about 5 minutes. That I'm looking at the clock. If I'm reading it right, the Dungeon Delver on YouTube is going to be doing his First and Gamma World campaign that he's been running for a while now. So you can go on over to YouTube and watch that if you want to. And then at 10 p.m., I have another buddy, Lord Mattias. He and Gary do his second watch channel, which is from like 10 p.m. my time to midnight, where they just chat about anything TTRPG related. And then tomorrow morning, I do my Ultracast episode with some of my guys where we just talk about pop culture and all the crazy shenanigans that have been happening in the world lately. So
Excellent.
thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thank you again, Mark, for coming on here. I'm glad we got to talk, and I look forward to seeing some more of what RDS will bring to the table.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed
All
it.
right. Have a good night, everybody.
Night.